Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today's guest is proof that it's never too late to tear up the script. Norman Calvo is in his early 70s and he still runs half marathons, travels the world on adventures, and hosts a podcast challenging the idea of that getting older means slowing down. His whole mission is going against the norm. And guys, if you've been sitting on the fence wondering whether it's too late for you to change, then this one is for you. Norman, welcome to the next chapter.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Luke. It's a pleasure to be here, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be one of your guests. Thank you.
Brilliant. No worries, mate. Okay, let's dive in. So, for anyone that doesn't know you, Norman, who are you and what is going against the norm all about, please?
Oh, sure. Well, as far as who I am, I've been a mortgage banker for 44 years, a very, very long career, but that's just part of my life because over the last 10 years or so, I've been transitioning to have far more adventures, far more interests, far more hobbies, and far different things that most people would consider a little bit off center, a little bit unconventional for a banker of 44 years. So I've been fortunate to have the flexibility that during time and work hours, I've been able to carve a good amount of time to get involved with all the different activities that I'm interested in. And against the norm is basically that doing things that are slightly unconventional, exciting, adventurous, interesting, and keeps me motivated to keep on going and going and going. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. So, take me back. What did life look like before you started making these changes? What was the version of Norman that existed before you started all of this, please?
Wow. Well, I don't like to remember the version of Norman that existed back then, but because thank God I was a very successful mortgage banker. I had my own company, 30 employees, and we were in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and it was the best market in the United States. I mean, just phenomenally busy. But I was working, Luke, I would say I would get to the office at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Starbucks opened at 5:30. I got my coffee. I sat down at my desk, turned on my computer, 6 a.m. until approximately 7:30 at night. It was like a drug. Work was like a drug, honestly. And I was such a workaholic that I hardly took any time off to do anything. I weighed 247 pounds. I'm only 5'11". So, and now I only weigh 175. So you can see the difference there. I was so overweight. I didn't look like I was obese, but when you go up the subway stairs here in New York, and sometimes there's quite a few stairs, at 59, I was getting 60. I was getting winded, and I couldn't play with, grandkids so much. It was a very, very challenging physical situation to be in. And I didn't know how to get out of it, to be honest with you. But I kept on making money and I needed a lot of money and I had, 4 kids and grandkids and all those sorts of things. But finally, things started to change ever so slowly when I entered into my 60s. And I'm just so happy that that happened. But work was the be all and the end all for me for all that time. And I didn't know what else there was to do, to be honest with you. Yeah. Yeah. It was tough, a tough
So,
situation to be in.
so 44 years of banking, that is a hell of a long time. You say that your health sort of started to catch up with you in your early 60s. I mean, was there a specific moment, and you've just mentioned the subway there, the subway stairs. What was the real turning point where you thought, I'm done living like this and I want to change?
The turning point, it happened ever so slowly, but basically the turning point was getting so winded that I couldn't do anything. Going to the gym was a disaster because I couldn't really, couldn't do much cardio. I certainly didn't have that much strength either. And so fortunately what happened, and this was all happenstance, it was fortuitous, and I'm so glad that it happened. I had an employee who she did marathons. She ran marathons all over the world, Paris and London and Tokyo and here, there, and everywhere. She was going all over on her vacation days. And I was 59 and a half at the time. And I said, "Oh, Monica, that's, wow, you can do that? Norman, it's a lot of fun." And me at that time thinking that marathons were a lot of fun. I thought she was nuts, actually. But she said, "You should try it. I'll do it with you." And we had an office in Manhattan and an office in Brooklyn at the time. And it just so happened that there was going to be a half marathon scheduled in Brooklyn about four months from when we were speaking. And she said, "Norman, I'll train with you. I'll give you guidance and support, and we'll run the marathon together." And I said, "Okay, all right, can I walk? Maybe I can walk." She said, "Yeah, you want to walk a little bit? I'll walk with you." But it turns out you got a plan in place. It was a 16-week plan. I followed it perfectly. I mean, I'm a type A person that, you get me a goal and I follow it to the T. So I did it. And it was, I'll tell you, Luke, it was one of the nicest turning points in my life because I knew so many of the people in that Brooklyn neighborhood, my realtors, the real estate attorneys, they all came out to cheer me on because they all knew me. I was working with all of their clients. "Hey, go Calvo, go, go, go." And okay, I didn't finish all that well. I still was pretty heavy at the time, but it was so much fun with Monica and with the people cheering me on and my kids and family and my grandkids and all this kind of stuff. I said, "You know what? Let me try another one." So 6 months later, I did the Miami half marathon. And by then I weighed less and I was getting better and better and better and better. But that was the turning point of, fortuitously, Monica said, "Hey, Norman, why don't you try doing a marathon?" And, 13 marathons later, I'm still doing them. I actually signed up for one in Malaga, Spain in November. So that's going to be my first international half marathon. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wow. So your first race was at 59?
59 and a half. Yeah. Yeah. 59 and
Wow.
a half.
And was that a full marathon distance or was that
No, no,
half a marathon?
that was the half marathon. I did the
Yeah.
New York City full marathon 3 years later. 3 years later,
Oh, wow.
I did the half marathon in Brooklyn, then another half in Miami, then another half in Seattle. I'm from Seattle, by the way. That's where I'm from. So that was exciting because I ran past, 2 blocks away from where I grew up. And then I did the New York City Marathon later. It was 2000, maybe 2014, something like that. So it was quite a ways, quite a long time ago. But I'll never do a full marathon again. If you've ever done a full marathon, Luke,
Yeah.
I came home one day after a 20-mile training marathon, part of the training, and my wife thought I was going to die, just going to die. 20 miles, like what? I was gone all morning, So they're fun, but no more full marathons. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they are tough. I can relate, Norman. So my first race was back in 2013, and I did a half marathon for my first race after watching my wife do a half marathon, and she really inspired me to give it a go. So
Yeah.
yeah, I remember doing that, and then I was very similar. After a few years, I built up to doing a full marathon, and I've
Right.
done 5 or 6. Yeah, I've done 5 or 6 myself. So I
Wow.
know I know what the training's like for them and those long runs on weekends or whenever you can get the time. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, like
It's
mentally and physically, it is so tough.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I like the halves because training is hard, but it's not that hard. You can find the time to do it. But it's so interesting. I recently finished the half marathon in Nashville, Tennessee, and a lot of hills there and things like that. But as I mentioned, I follow the training schedule really perfectly well. And by mile 11, I was passing people that were 40 years younger than me because
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And it was such an exhilarating experience because I'm seeing people that are 25, 30, and I'm still going like ever the bunny rabbit. What's that battery, the
The
energizer
George Tech
bunny rabbit?
Bunny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just kept going and going. And these people, I guess they didn't realize that you don't get out of the gate and start running real fast at the very beginning of the race. so you conserve your energy and you're able to finish it really, really nicely. So it's great. Marathons are wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The sense of accomplishment when you finish, when you cross over that line is unreal. I
Oh yeah.
remember when I was trying to get a sub 4 marathon for ages, and
Wow.
I eventually got there, and I just remember coming over the line. I was really emotional and just saying to my kids at the time, you know, this you can do anything if you put your mind to it, guys. You can really do anything, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's a hell of a feat when you do it because you've yeah, the amount it like you just said, it's the amount of training and hard work that goes into it. But I always found when you hit that wall at roughly 20 miles, like the mental battle that you've got going on in your head is something else, isn't it? And you really can't explain it to people unless they did it
Done.
themselves.
Unless they've done it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So you've switched to a whole food plant-based diet as well, and you lost over 30 pounds.
Yes.
What was actually going on in your body and your head when you made a decision like that?
Well, I had mentioned earlier that I weighed 247 pounds and I did lose some weight with those marathons. I did. I mean, I got down to maybe 210, 215, something like that. But I stalled out. And no matter what I was able to do, no matter what, I kept on trying to diet and do this and do that. And it just, I couldn't lose any more weight. Not that I looked awful and not that I was unfit, because at that time I was running half marathons and they were going just really, really well. But I knew I had high blood pressure as well. And so, my doctor suggested that I should, try to lose some more weight. So I tried, this diet, that diet. I didn't do any of the awful ones, but nothing worked because I was always kind of hungry. I was always needing to eat more and more and more. So I just came across this book by John McDougall. I don't know if you've heard of John McDougall. It's a starch solution. He wrote it's famous book. And he's all vegan. And what he recommended there was it's almost like potatoes and vegetables and no meat, no processed food, no cheese, no this, no that. I bought his book and then a couple of other books by J. Colin Campbell. He wrote the what's called the China, not the China diet, but the famous fellow from Cornell University here in the States. And everybody was recommending to go vegan. And I said, basically, what have I got to lose? I wasn't a meat and potatoes type American, like steaks and hamburgers and barbecues. I was okay, but I never was into it so much. And I said, let me give it a try. And with it, for years and years and years, I was strictly vegan and I lost about 30 pounds. I went down to about 180 with it. My wife always laughs. Well, Norman, you're still always telling me you're hungry. You're always hungry. You're always hungry. You know, beans and potatoes and vegetables and lettuce only does so much, you know.
Yeah.
And it was funny because everyone around me, don't you need protein? Don't you need protein? Don't you need protein? And of course, you probably do get enough protein on a strictly vegan diet. You probably do, as long as you're, having tofu, as long as you're having beans and maybe supplementing with a little bit of vegan protein powder and things like that. But I lost the weight but I was still hungry. I was still hungry. Yeah. I have to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've recently tried the keto diet and
Oh, yeah.
very, very similar. Just you never really feel satisfied. You
Yeah.
never really feel full up, do you?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what happened, Luke, with that vegan diet? I didn't realize this, but as I did it for several years, and only my trainer, who I have a house on the Jersey Shore, and then we also have a house here in Brooklyn. So it was only after quite a while he noticed a differential in strength, in muscle strength of
Mm.
being on a strictly vegan diet. And he commented on it. Norman, you're not able to bench press as much as you used to. What's going on? What's this? What's that? And ultimately, I got a new trainer here in Manhattan, and he said, Norman, look, if you want to put on muscle and you want to be strong, you want to do this, I do recommend that you have more protein. And you can be as vegan as you want, but maybe some lean chicken, maybe some, a lot more tofu, maybe this, maybe that. And so I did. I ultimately changed a little bit. I'm not, eating meat every single night or hamburgers or things like that, but I do have the occasional meat and I do have the occasional fish now. It's helpful. It's helpful because I did put on a lot of muscle. Yeah.
Mm. So when you were running these half marathons and training, well, like you still are, you're training like a man half of your age.
Yeah.
What does a week actually look like in terms of training then, Norman?
Well, right now, I'm in the, kind of like maintenance phase for the next half marathon that I'm doing. So right now I'm running 3 times per week. On
Mm.
Tuesdays, I run, it's kind of like interval training, 3 miles, 3 minutes, kind of like a medium pace and 2 minutes fast pace. So I do that 6 times over. So it takes me about 30, 35 minutes. That's Tuesday. Wednesday is 20 minutes of hard, fast, fast running, like a 9 out of 10. I'm so out of breath after those 20 minutes, Luke. Like I tell you, I tell the trainer, I said, this is really hard. Norman, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be hard. What can I say? All right, whatever. And then Saturdays is a 5 mile medium paced run, a 5 mile medium paced run. But what happens is on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, I do basically weight training or full body weight training. And I'm also online taking a handstand training course. So I'm learning how to do handstands at 72 years old, if you could believe that. And I almost got it down. I'm going to be there as soon as I get the handstand perfected. I'm going to send you a video, Luke. You'll see it. It's going to be incredible. So
So why are you doing that, Norman? Why are you doing a handstand class?
I'll tell you, my son-in-law and my kids ask me the same darn question. What do you get out of this? What are you doing that for? Like I tell you, against the norm is doing something that's a little bit unconventional. I mean,
Yeah.
how many people do still continue to do marathons? And for sure, how many people are doing handstands? But the reason why I do it is because it's a challenge to do something that you've never done before. And it's creating, I know this sounds, I don't mean to sound scientific or doctor like, but it does create new neural pathways in your head to be able to make those changes in your body, not bodily function, but in your nervous system and your muscle tone and your muscle system so that you can accomplish something that you've never done before. It's like somebody trying to learn the violin when they're older. Well, something's got to change. And what's happening is in your brain and in your muscles, you're creating those new neural pathways that helps you keep young. And to be honest with you, that's the reason why I do it. The more that older people, especially, I mean, when you're kids learn things like this and they keep on moving and they keep on growing and they keep on expanding their horizons. I also think that older people should expand their horizons and keep on growing. So that's the real reason why I do it. It's fun too, but the growth is really important for me. Yeah.
They say move it or lose it. I think that's a
Yeah.
great saying.
It's absolutely the best. Yeah. Yeah. Because I see people my age that aren't moving at all and they're withering. They're drifting and they're withering and they're getting fat. And that's just not for me. Not at all. Yeah.
Your whole brand then, Norman, like going against the norm is, I mean, what do you think stops men making those changes that they know that they need to make? What's the
Yeah.
main what's the main reason, do you think?
Main reason, a lot of them, I'll be honest with you, is they've forgotten what they're interested in. They've forgotten what excited them when they were kids. They've forgotten to have fun, to be honest with you. A lot of them spent 40 years in a career. Sometimes they like their career, sometimes they don't, sometimes they put up with it, but they spent all those years raising a family, providing for everybody else, doing what society requires of them. more or less, or what they think that requires of them. And they haven't had enough time to really put any effort into their own life. So they've forgotten what they really love to do. But there's another thing that's especially important here is that there's this subtle fear of doing something new that might create embarrassment or, like, what are people going to think? You know, I'm going to go do like, for example, I do now I sing at cabarets here in Manhattan, right? I've got my own one man show. It's all a lot of fun. There's a story behind that too. But people would be afraid to get up in front of an audience and sing if they've never been a singer before. Well, why be afraid if you're already at my age or in your six? What on earth are you afraid of? You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to lose money, right? What do you got to lose? But a lot of men have this fear of embarrassment or fear of what people are going to think that they're doing something unusual or different. And they can't step out of the norm. They can't unless they go through some sort of coaching or some sort of training that gets them motivated to become, a little bit different. And that's the key to life, I think. Yeah.
Do you think they struggle with their pride, their ego?
They do. Yes. Yeah, because they feel that many of them are successful by the time they're, in their 60s. They have, enough financial security, and they've been so accustomed to being on top of the game, so to speak, that to be on the bottom now is frightening. It's really, really frightening. Like, I'll never become Frank Sinatra. Never, you know. And quite frankly, I don't care. If people enjoy my cabaret shows, which they do, that's all that matters to me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It must be a great headspace to be in, just not caring, really. I mean, it must be really, really freeing because like you said, so many people, they're scared of rejection, they're scared of what people are gonna think. And yeah, I think it is absolutely amazing what you're doing because so many people would fear of being judged. And that's what
Yeah.
you're talking about, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? I see my grandchildren, they're learning to walk or they're learning to ride their bicycles or things like that. And of course, they're going to fall when they first start walking. They're going to fall off their bikes. You tell them to get back on. You give, oh, good job, good job, good job. I remember one time, this was only maybe 10 years ago, I joined a choir, a rock choir here in Manhattan. And I had never sung before. I mean, this was like one of my first performances. And I volunteered to sing Let It Be, of course, by the Beatles, right? And all I got was the first line, Let It Be. And I practiced with my singing teacher like 1,000 times, Luke, 1,000 times. And okay, it came time to, the music started and I'm there. It's 100-person choir. I was chosen to be the lead person there and I froze. I absolutely froze. Finally, the musician kept on playing the chords and I started. I sang totally, totally off key. I looked like a deer in headlights. I honestly, I did. But you know what? And my realtor friends, my family, my wife, my kids, they were all there in the audience. And they came up to me. What a great job, Dad. Oh, that was so wonderful. That was so good. It was phenomenal. Right. A couple of years later, right, I finally had the nerve to look at the video and it was awful. I mean, God awful. But that's the key. I couldn't care if I wasn't embarrassed. Yes, I was embarrassed. It's true. But I wasn't so much embarrassed that I was afraid to get up in front of the audience and sing. That's the key. I did it anyway.
Courage.
Yeah, it's courage.
Courage. That's the
Courage.
key. So
Yeah.
do you ever get the feeling then, Norman, that, do you ever think, what the hell am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Everyone around me is living a certain way. Maybe they've been, I don't want to say that they've been conditioned by society that they're like sheep. But do you ever think, why am I going against the norm and why am I doing these things differently?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a great question. Because honestly, I have to answer it yes. I do sometimes think about it because all of my friends I mean, to every last one of them, right? What on earth are you doing, Norman? Like most of them continue to work, just continue and continue. I mean, okay, they're making money. That's totally fine. But why am I doing this? Well, my only answer is because I enjoy it, because I have fun. After 44 years of banking, what do I don't need the money anymore. So why not make the transition to do something that's really, really going to be a source of pride and a source of fun for myself? I don't want to be 80 years old, Luke, or 90 years old and regret not having done all the different things that I've always had in my bucket list to do. I just can't be that. I look at other people, friends and family members too, that what, you're still working 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and you're coming home, you're tired, and you're watching TV? What are you going to think about when you're 80 years old or 85 years old that you continue to work and you have a huge bank account or a portfolio worth hundreds or millions of dollars, but you can't use it? You never used it? What good is that? So, yes, it's slightly unconventional or quite a bit unconventional what I do, but I love it. At the same time, there is that underlying, well, but it goes away. It quickly goes away when I have all the fun in the cabaret rehearsals and the marathons and the handstands and all the other stuff that I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah. It goes away.
Yeah, you're always going to have that little voice in the back of your head, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Yeah.
saying, "What are you doing?" Because you're constantly stepping out your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Our brains are they're wired for survival, aren't they? So you are going to
Right.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're going to, yeah. Hmm.
that's part of being human. But you mentioned there, obviously, you're not making money anymore, and your friends are. Is there anything else that you've had to lose by living this new way, Norman?
Yeah, yeah. And it's not that I lose friends. It's not that. But you know what? The other day, it was weekend here, of course, and we're on the Jersey Shore in the summer, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, a gorgeous day. Personally, I don't like going to the beach. So, okay, everybody was going to the beach, but I wanted to take my grandkids out for ice cream, and I wanted to go for a jog, and I wanted to do this. So sometimes what happens is that I'm not with as many of my friends or colleagues that I would like to, because they're doing things that are just not all that interesting to me anymore. Like, for example, going on a cruise, which for the whole world, really, they love going on a cruise. And I hear it all the time. Oh, and the food. Can you imagine the food that was there? What, do I really care that much about food? Like, give me a great, place to jog. Give me a great place to hike. Give me a cabaret show. Well, they have cabaret shows on the cruises too. That's true. But oftentimes what happens is that because I'm doing the things that I'm doing and that I enjoy doing, I don't have as much time to participate in what people my age are really interested in. To me, that's just one of the things that's in the back of my mind. I think about every once in a while. Well, maybe I should be doing that, but I let it go because I have too much fun doing what I really like to do. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think life's all about trade-offs, and everything has a cost.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a cost to everything. And, there's a cost to going to work until you're 80 and watching Netflix when you come home because you're so darn tired. There's a cost to that. I mean, you know, ever since I was a young kid, my brother and his friend used to think, and I'm sorry for the language, but they used to tell me that I had a nuclear reactor in my ass. And it's still there. It's still there, Luke. And the funny thing is, people my age or people in their 40s and 50s, they've decommissioned that nuclear reactor long ago. And I'm just not willing to decommission it. I'm not. And so I just keep on going. Just keep on going.
Society tells men to slow down, like we've been discussing, and take it easy and accept that you're just getting old. How angry does that make you feel?
It's awful. I mean, it doesn't make me angry. It makes me more sad for the
Mm.
other people, because, to me, I kind of laugh. And when people ask me how old I am, I said, I'm post adolescent. That's all I am. I'm post-adolescent. I haven't hit middle age, but when I finally get there, maybe I'll slow down a tiny bit. But it's kind of like who nobody ever said that I had to agree with that philosophy. I wasn't forced to accept it. And I don't accept it, but unconsciously, most people do. And I think that that is a mistake of society and how everybody is raised to believe that once you're in your 60s, you should slow down. Well, why? Why? The world is full of people in their 70s and 80s that are still running marathons. They're still writing books. They're still out there as incredible individuals that are creating things and doing amazing, amazing things with their lives. Well, I want to be part of that crowd. I'm not part of the general collective crowd that kind of drifts off into nothingness. Yeah, not going to do that. Yeah.
Where do you think that pressure to settle down and slow down, where do you think that comes from?
You know, it probably originated way back when people were dying much earlier.
Yeah.
I don't think people society, although it is changing, it is tremendously changing with the, I don't know about in England, but here at the baby boomers now, they really created society and the movement in society here in America and maybe across the world too. But I think it originated when people were dying much, much younger. A lot of people haven't grasp the fact that we're going to live until we're 90, 95, maybe. And so if that's the case, why would you want to settle down and kind of drift and do much of nothing when you're 65? Because there's so much life left if you just decide for yourself that you have the opportunity, go take it, take the bull by its horns and go with it. So um, I think it's an old viewpoint, an old way of looking at the world and of how we age that should be discarded. And society in general should tell people that's old. Here's the new way of looking at things. A lot of scientists, a lot of medical people are saying this for sure, but it hasn't been grasped by everybody yet.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think society is changing, but it's going to be a slow progress. It's going to be
Yeah.
real slow progress,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But yeah, we're
Yeah.
living a hell of a lot longer now, aren't we? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's whether the government, obviously the governments, they can't afford to sort of to fund all these pensions and stuff either for people that are living longer as well. So
Right.
yeah,
Who knows what's going to happen here in America? Still people can retire when they're 62, although, 67 is probably you get more money, but the Social Security system is going to run out of money soon. And, because everybody's living so much longer than originally anticipated, they're either going to have to raise the amount that people pay into it or delay the time that you are allowed to retire because there's no money. There's just no money left. Yeah. Yeah.
so you've interviewed so many different people who have rebuilt their lives, that they've walked away from careers, they've moved countries, and they've started over in their sixties and seventies, Norman. What
Yeah.
is the common thread in all of them?
Oh, yeah. 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 Well, the common thread for every single one is that they knew that they needed to make some changes in their lives, either because they wanted to have more novelty or excitement in their lives. And some of them unfortunately had, went through the school of hard knocks where something awful may have happened in their life and they had the courage to go and make the necessary adjustments so that they can continue on. But most of them were because of excitement and novelty. I do not want this life. It's not for me. I need a change and I need it to be different, exciting, new, and life affirming. And they were all of them needed life affirming. That's what created the change in them. And it was subtle at times. I had one one person that I interviewed, she was in the corporate world and she had a very nice job and a lot of money. Actually, she was from Scotland. Um, a lot of money and things like that, but it just didn't do anything for her anymore. It just didn't do anything for her. Her kids were a little bit older already, and it was all right. It's time for some change. So all that she did is she went to a meet-up group for people who were hiking the hills in Scotland or wherever it was. And from there, she became a world-class hiker in the Arctic Circle, in the outbacks of Australia, here, there. I mean, her stories are phenomenal, but it started with this subtle one little change. And that was, by the way, everybody's, trajectory of that subtle one little change. Like for me, the subtle change was, okay, I'll start training for a half marathon. I didn't know I would start doing cabaret and handstands and this and that and that. Who knew that? Working out in the gym all the time. Who knew that? But it's a subtle change. If I got to change myself, I got to be a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will think that they need to make these big drastic changes, but they don't, do they? They need to make one small subtle change, like you just said. You
Yeah.
plant a seed almost, and then it grows and grows, and you get that zest for life back, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of a sudden you say, this was nice. Maybe I could do it something else. And maybe I could do that. Yeah, it's the subtle change that really creates the difference. Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that men get wrong when they try and reinvent themselves, Norman?
Oh, well, it's talking about subtle change. The biggest thing that they get wrong is that they think that it happens overnight. And
Oh.
that is what makes people stop in their tracks and not do anything. So, you can't say, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. No, you're going to say, going to, you know, I'm going to run maybe a mile or I'm going to walk a mile. So that that is the issue that stops or prevents so much change is that they're looking at the end goal or the end point and thinking it's too hard. It's impossible for me to do that. Impossible. So they don't do anything. But is it possible to walk a mile? I mean, that takes what, 20 minutes? Nothing. Walk as slow as you want. Who cares? Right? Or is it impossible to sing one song to your grandchildren? One, just one. Don't get up in front of an audience. Don't, join a choir. Just sing one song. Learn it and see what you can do. So that's the biggest, drawback to many, many people to getting something done is that it looks like too big of a goal, too big of a challenge, and it really shouldn't be. Yeah.
People get overwhelmed by looking too far ahead when they should just
Yeah.
start with small steps and
Yeah.
break it down.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you look at men that are stuck, who know something that needs to change but won't move, what's actually holding them back in your experience and all the people that you spoke to, Norman?
They need, right? They need a little bit of compassion and compassion for themselves, but they also need somebody to be kind of like an advocate for their improvement. And what I mean by that is that they need somebody to kind of what should I say, to kind of go along with them on for the ride, at least to give them the encouragement, to give them the excitement, to provide that forum of you're doing great, you're doing wonderful. This is going to be improve your life tremendously. They need an advocate to help them along so that they feel good about themselves, good about what they're doing, and they don't feel like they're an island in the stream all alone, thinking that they're doing this by themselves, because that's not the way it's going to happen. I mean, it's fortunate that there's so many meetup groups. It's fortunate that there's so many opportunities and those forums provide the community to be
Mhm.
able to do something and get something done. And that's the biggest thing because trying to do it alone, that's what prevents so many people from getting it done is that they can't do
Yeah.
it alone. It's scary. And you don't have anybody advocating for improvement. You don't have anybody supporting you. You don't have anybody giving you that encouragement along the way. Hey, you can do this. This is going to be great. I'll do it with you. I'll do it with you. If I had never had Monica back then with the marathon, I would never have run marathons. Not in a
Mm.
million years. I would never have sung one note had I not had a mortgage applicant tell me that she said, "Oh, Norman, you must be a great singer." And she only said that to me because I was her mortgage broker. And the way that I'm speaking to you now, Luke, is the way that I was speaking to her. And she liked the sound of my voice. Ultimately, she became my singing coach. That's how it happened, you know? And then she was, giving me encouragement all along the way. So that's how you make the change.
Who you surround yourself with is so important. Environment really is
Yeah.
important, and that community is yeah, just joining groups, having encouragement, and being with like-minded people is just it can it can make or break a man, definitely.
It definitely makes or breaks you. Absolutely. That's very, very key. Can't do it alone. Cannot.
You spoke earlier, Norman, about your bucket list. What is on the list, and what haven't you done yet that you're going to do in the future?
Well, yeah, my next one, and my wife keeps saying, "Oh, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. You're not doing." Yes, I am, sweetheart. Yes, I am. I'm going to do it. Right. So I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. To be
Oh
honest.
wow! Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and about 10 years ago, um, I'm sure you've heard of Yosemite National Park here in California, in America.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
there's it's not really a mountain, it's a huge peak called Half Dome, and it's 10,500 feet high. So I climbed that with a backpack on my back with my sons, and I said, "Oh, I got to do this again. I got to do this again." Well, I haven't, except for other hiking expeditions, I haven't gone that high before. But Mount Kilimanjaro is only about 19,000 feet high. And people my age, I think the oldest person has done is like in their 80s, like mid 80s. But there are plenty of expeditions over there that, you know, help older folks do it. And I can train for it, and I'm going to train for it, despite my wife saying no, 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 no. I even asked my doctor, there's things called altitude pills that you take so that your blood becomes thinner and you can accept the oxygen levels much better. I'm not exactly sure the science behind it, but it's not that dangerous. I mean, it is, but it's not. So that's my next bucket list thing, and I got to do it. Just got to do it.
Me and my wife are looking into doing it next year.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
great. Well,
Yeah.
you're much younger than me, Luke. So you,
I've so one of my dreams is to one day climb Mount Everest, and they do say that starting with Kilimanjaro is a good way to start.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's gonna be so much fun. It'd be great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good for you. Good, good, good. Yeah.
So, what does living a full life actually mean to you now, Norman? And how has that definition changed you from your younger years?
Well, just like everybody else, when I was younger, I accepted the idea that society, has in general of growing up, going to college, finding a career and establishing your career, getting married, having kids, raising the kids, doing this and doing that. And, I'm so grateful that I did do that for all those years. But life's meaning isn't just that. For me now, life's meaning is to grow older and accomplishing everything that my soul, and I don't mean to sound religious or philosophical, but that my soul really desires and really wants, not to do things that are, taboo or, against the law or anything like that. But, for example, I want to go out and spend at least a month or maybe 2 months traveling throughout Europe again. And when I graduated from college, I did that for 5 years. I taught English in Spain. I worked on a farm in Switzerland. I went all over the world for 5 years. It was like you take a gap year off, and that turned out to be 5 years for me. But, I just want to create the life that I really love to do. and to not have any regrets when I'm 80 or 90, when the days finally come that it's over. Because the worst thing for me, or the worst thing for most people, is to live a life and be, shortly about to die and have all sorts of regrets that you never did what you really wanted to do. That's not a life. And I know that if I had never gotten married and had kids and grandkids and things like that, I would have regretted that. I'm not an advocate of, just do whatever you want to do in life. No, but you have to somewhat satisfy societal needs, somewhat satisfy your needs, and live a life of enrichment, excitement, and adventure. And that's what life's meaning is for me at this point in time.
It's a great way of looking at it. And I think life is all about balance. And I think you've just rounded it up very well there, really.
Yeah, yeah. You've got to have that balance. I mean, for some people, never having kids, well, that's the way they want to live.
Mm.
Perfectly okay, because they're balancing their life in other ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat, way
Mm.
more than one way to skin a cat. And so, whatever it is that you really love to do, as long as it's within reason and not against the law and not, taboo or whatever it is, go for it. Do what your heart really desires or your soul really desires. And that's what makes life meaningful.
So, in your experience, Norman, talking to all the people that you spoke to, living the way that you've lived, what do you think the secret is to living a long, happy, healthy life? I know it's a big question, but
Yeah.
what would your take on that be?
A long, happy, and healthy life is to make sure that you know, you have your health in order, meaning you're taking care of your health. That's of primary concern because most people, oftentimes, that's the last thing that they take care of. Take care of everything else and everybody else but themselves. But take care of your health, but you have to take care of the people that you want to live amongst, your community, your you know, social organization or community that you're living with. Make sure that you're embedded in a community with friends and family and connections, because without it, you're going to wither anyway. So if you're taking care of your health and you're taking care of your social life, and you're taking care of your significant other, whether it's a wife, a partner, whatever it may be. So you have everything combined together. Now, as a younger person, you're also going to have to include your work, what's your career, how you're going to base your financial security, what are you going to do? But once you have that in place, your financial security, your community, your partner, and your health, that's going to make a great life for you. As long as you're not getting totally lopsided with the only thing that I should be doing is running marathons. No, not really. Or the only thing that I should be doing is doing what my significant other wants me to do. No, that's not going to work either, right? So it's got to be a life of balance. That's important.
Yeah. Otherwise, just going to burn yourself out.
Burn yourself like what I was doing when I was working 14 hours a day. That was not a life. But for me at the time, I mean, yeah, I kind of regret it, kind of don't, but it happened and that's the way it went. Yeah.
If you could go back then and speak to your younger self, Norman, what would you say?
Oh, well, that's the key. I've just mentioned it, Luke. I would say, hey, Norman, get your health in order from a much earlier age. Could I have stopped? Could I work just 10 hours a day? Maybe. But I could have found a better way to organize my business so that I had either more assistance or more an organization within the business so that I wasn't the person who was always doing everything. And I would have wanted to learn how to do that at a much younger age. And so my younger life, it would be figure out a way to get my life in order and more balanced at a much younger age. Yeah,
Mm.
that's for sure.
Not not take on so much and learn to delegate and have a healthier work life balance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Much healthier work-life balance. And it's interesting. I mentioned that I was away from the States for 5 years. I didn't
Mhm.
have my first job until I was 27.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I was so 27. So, and I kept telling my kids, "Hey, you guys better get a career. You better get going. You graduate from college, you better get going. 20, you want to take a year off, take a year off, but don't you dare take 5 years off." So that would have helped tremendously had I started when I was 23 rather than 27. But, I don't regret it at this point in time, but it would have been better had I gotten more organized with work. That would have helped. Yeah.
What does the next chapter look like for you then? And where can people find you, Norman? I'll put all your bits and pieces in the show notes anyway.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But they can find me. The most interesting place to find me now is either on my podcast, which is Against the Norm. You can find it on Spotify or iTunes, whatever. But also, I write a Substack every single week, and the Substack is fun, exciting, interesting, and creative. And they'll find out much more about me with both of those venues: the Substack normancalvo.substack.com, or Against the Norm on my podcast. But my next chapter is basically continuing the doing, you know, perfecting the handstand, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And I know that once I finish the handstand, even maybe a few months before perfecting the handstand and a few months before Kilimanjaro, I've got to think of some new adventures to go on. And there will be some. I don't know what they'll be yet. Like 2 years ago, I didn't know what the handstand would be. I didn't, think of Kilimanjaro either. But there will be other adventures that I'm going to figure out and do and just keep on going. Even when I'm 80, Luke, even when I'm 85, there'll be something that's against the norm for that age. So uh I even read that there was a marathoner who was 100 years old. So maybe I'll be that guy. You never know.
If your knees will let you, you'll keep on going.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I hope they hold out.
Norman, thank you so much for coming on today, mate. It's really been inspirational. The way you live your life, your energy that you bring, the fact that you're out there running half marathons at your age, traveling, building stuff. And I mentioned it earlier, that zest for life at your age, it's incredible. And if I've got half the energy that you've got at your age, I'll be so happy, mate. But thank you very much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I really enjoyed our hour together, Luke. It's been really a pleasure, fun, exciting, and interesting. So thank you very, very much for allowing me on your show. It's been really wonderful.
No worries, Norman. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day. All right, we'll see you soon. All right, bye. Bye-bye.